Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elliott podcast. The podcast is a spinoff of the website jakestake.com. I'm your host, Jacob Elliott, and I'm talking with one of my dearest friends. In fact, I've known him for almost a decade. He and I went cross paths through the University of Colorado when we were both J school majors, sorry, everyone. And also, we met through a mutual friend, Ryan Park. His name is Wade Holland, and he's probably one of the best content creators I know. And without further ado, please help me welcome Wade Holland. Hey, Wade!
Jacob, how are we doing? Thanks for having me on, man. This is great.
It's amazing to see you grow, and also, everyone, I've known Wade for almost a decade. I can't believe we almost known each other for a decade.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's been some time. It's cool to see. I've known you pretty much my entire content creating career, because right when I was starting out in Colorado, that was right when we met, and I was I was literally just figuring out how to pretty much turn on a camera at that point. So it's cool to see the evolution of your career and my career, and here we are.
Absolutely, Wade. And it's like, the thing is, even though I left the camera side of things, I still have my edge. I'm still with my reporting, my storytelling abilities, and we're both storytellers.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, I would agree. At the end of the day, my goal is to get people excited through the things that I'm covering, talking about, and the stories that I'm telling.
Awesome. So, everyone, Wade made his last appearance on the Jake's Take platform when he had our last conversation in August 2013.
Wow.
Yes. So it has been 7 years since we last spoke, and how have you grown as a content creator, Wade?
Oh, man. So first off, do you have that interview from 2013?
I have it on my website still.
I'm going to have to go look that up. I'm trying to think do you remember what we talked about? What was happening in 2013? Whoa.
Let me just go on my website and type in, once again, everybody, it's on jakes-take.com. And then if you can look on it and then search my site and we type in Wade Holland's name, it is Wade, and then Holland, Holland. And then, so you were working on the chain game, my friend. You just finished Adventurous 500, which you worked on with Ryan Park, where they covered on 500 days of Colorado, and it was still one of the best things I have ever seen. But you also worked on the chain game as well, so.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. That was just such a different time in so many ways. I was a great time though too. You know, I was excited about creating kind of an original series, and in the chain game, I've still done a couple little episodes sporadically. If you dig deep in the web, you can probably find them. But I think since then, I've probably honed in a little bit more on what I think my specialties are and what I'm really what my brand is all about. The chain game, was like a musical interview game show, which I would still love to do maybe at some point. But I think the stuff that I started finding that resonated the most, not only with myself, but the audience I was creating, was kind of the wild adventure, kind of more obscure adventure stuff that I've always loved to find. And the more I started making that content over the past, I guess, 7 years since that was 2013, it's just kind of snowballed a little bit more. And the stories I've told have been a little bit more in that vein. Chain Game was great. 2013 was a good year, but I'm happy to say that now my content, I think, has evolved a little bit more into the wild, zany, adventurous stuff.
And I agree with you on that. And the thing is, your motto is live life adventurously. It's shown all throughout your content. And what does that statement mean to you? And why should my listeners adapt or try to adapt to that lifestyle?
Good question. I think live life adventurously really is just my way of saying, take advantage of every single day that you have. And that doesn't necessarily need to mean you need to go hike a 14,000-foot peak or go ski in sub-Antarctic temperatures and do crazy stuff that would maybe be more fun for me than the average person. But it just means that whatever it is that gets you excited in life, make sure to pursue that every single day. And living adventurously could mean, push yourself to do something that you normally wouldn't you're not in your comfort zone. You wouldn't normally just do that every day. I think that adventure could literally be found right around the corner, down at your, right in your local town. And I think that with the Adventurous 500, that was sort of the first time I ever really started discovering that through content. The project that Ryan Park and I did back in, I guess that was 2011, 12, where we did 500 days of living life adventurously, finding kind of the unique adventures that people don't know as much about, and finding unique people, finding unique experiences. And for your audience, Jake, I think that can be applied for literally any passion or interest that someone has. So again, that doesn't even have to be outdoor focused adventures. It could be, the motto is just living your best life, and truly understanding you only have one life, so make the absolute most of it. And at the end of the day, I want to say that I did everything I can to give it my best.
Okay, so I have to say this. You have been on a lot of wild adventures. Skijoring championships, competitive races with using ostriches and camels.
That is one of them.
And not to mention skydiving in Tahoe.
Those are a couple of them, man. We're getting the most out of life. Right around the corner.
So tell me about skijoring, because I think my audience doesn't know what skijoring is.
Yeah, so skijoring is a sport that combines a horse rider and a skier, and a horse. So it's essentially a horse that is pulling a skier down the main street of it tends to be these old rustic Western mining towns. And it dates back to, actually, it was a Norwegian sport that came over to the United States. And it came to rural areas because these cowboy wranglers would pull skiers, and they'd go over jumps. They would have to pick up these rings with a baton. And the whole idea was kind of the fastest rider skier, or the fastest horse rider skier combination would win for the day, and they would take home the pot of pie, the gold, whatever it is they were taking home that day. I guess maybe back in the 1800s they were taking home pies. I don't know, but they were taking home the prize for the day. And it's been going on for a very, very long time, and now it's started to get a little bit more attention. I discovered this sport in the town of Leadville, Colorado, which is the highest incorporated town, or I guess city, in the United States. And they've been having it every single year. And I, was very curious about this sport. So I talked to some of the ranchers and wranglers and asked them, how can I compete? They set me up with a horse and a horse rider. And I did one test run, and next thing you knew, they threw me in the competition. And I went over the jumps, picked up all the orange rings with my baton, and ended up getting third place. So
not bad for your first rodeo.
Not too bad. I was excited. I would want to say it wasn't my first rodeo, but it really was my first rodeo. So it was one of those things where I just stepped in, and I've had I used to be a competitive freestyle skier for many years. So I think having a ski background helped, but it was for me pushing myself again and trying a new adventure and a new experience as an outsider. A lot of these cowboys and people said, "Who is this guy? What is he doing here?" And I think once they saw that my intentions were genuine and I really just wanted to explore what this was all about and kind of rub shoulders with them and try to compete, they were pretty excited to see me do it. So that's what the sport of skijoring is. It happens in the other places around the country, but Leadville is like the championships. That's where a big one of it is. And then there's, after that kind of led me on this quest to find all these other very unique games and festivals and sports that take place around the world and are still very unknown to a large population of people, just because they've remained kind of underground, if you will, for so many years.
And that brings us to ostrich and camel races.
Ostrich and camel races. So the funny thing with ostrich and camel racing is I had heard about it because a friend of mine who's big into Western history had talked about this town of Virginia City, Nevada, where Mark Twain used to live in the 1850s, I guess it was. And he would write a lot of his original tall tales and a lot of his original writings that would turn to books in Virginia City. So he had a history of being in Virginia City. And the story goes that Mark Twain had written a false article about a camel race being in Virginia City in the mid 1800s. No one believed him. So they kind of were getting tired of Mark Twain. He eventually got chased out of town. And then 100 years later, to pay homage to Mark Twain being there, the local newspaper said, let's just put out that article again and say, we're going to have camel races in honor of Mark Twain, but totally joking. And then lo and behold, the next week, people actually showed up with camels and ostriches ready to race in the town of Virginia City. So in like the mid 1950s, 100 years after Mark Twain was there, they held the first ever camel race in Virginia City, Nevada. And it's been going on ever since. So I heard about this and I couldn't believe that it was a real thing. I looked it up and I saw that this actually happens. So I said, oh my goodness, I need to be there. I need to cover this and I need to compete in the sport of ostrich racing. So that was how I found out about the sport at least. And then this past year I competed.
So one final venture that I want to touch base about is skydiving in Tahoe, because to me, Tahoe is like this legendary place in California, exactly, where you have a lot of major high class businessmen, top celebrities, major influencers come to play ball there. And then of all the activities you can do at Tahoe, you chose skydiving?
I wanted to make sure that, first I wanted to make sure the plane was working. And then once I saw it was working, I said, okay, it's working fine, I'm jumping. No, I don't know why I jumped out of the plane. I thought that, it was, the thing I will say is the best view of Lake Tahoe is probably going to be from the sky. So naturally I said, how can I view this lake and get the best photo for Instagram? No, I'm totally kidding. But I did know that they do skydiving in that part of the country. I was working on a project that we were showcasing a lot of the different outdoor adventures and unique things all around Lake Tahoe, because it is such an infamous place for so many years. The lake is legendary. It still has that almost like Caribbean tropical blue waters. When you see some of it, it's phenomenal. And so, I got linked up with a skydiving crew, I guess, operation in Tahoe. And the cool thing with it is I was actually working with the town of Carson City, Nevada at the time. And Carson City is just right kind of down the road from Lake Tahoe. So they said, hey, what are some of the most adventurous things you can do that are so close to our town? And we came up with the idea of, what's the best way to see Lake Tahoe? Obviously from the sky. So let's jump out of a plane. And kind of the unique thing, too, is I had my partner, Abby, with me there, who's a professional special effects makeup artist. And we thought, why don't we do a makeup look? And so she did this. If you watch the video, she turned her whole face into a tiger. So she thought, has a tiger ever jumped out of an airplane? Well, let's do some makeup as a tiger and jump out of an airplane. So Abby also jumped out of the plane with me.
That is a very insane but very creative way to use your platform.
So that's how we did it.
And then also, you mentioned earlier in our conversation, you also used to be a competitive skier growing up, and then one of that major passions actually turned into a not one but a 3-part documentary for you that highlighted the freestyle skiers in Montana. So there were three of them that you highlighted: Scott Schmidt, Tony Gilpin, and Mickey Price. So how did you come up with the concept of it, and what was that process like?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to grow up in Montana at a time when the sport of skiing has not developed commercially to the level it is now. It was still a little bit more of a rogue sport in a way.
Like ninja training is right now.
Exactly. That's right. There you go. And so, good reference. And the sport of skiing, growing up in Montana, I naturally